In this devlog, we wanted to expand upon a few mechanics and highlight a few improvements that have been made since our last devlog. First, let's talk animations. We want different weapon archetypes to feel different. A sword should be wielded differently than a mace, and a saber is wielded differently than a sword. We want to reflect that in our animations. We've understood your feedback as well and have started to improve upon and replace many animations. Our goal with one-handers, for example, is to create a solid baseline for the basic attacks and its locomotion, which is how your character moves and how it looks around, and then edit that baseline to make specific weapons feel more unique. We are on track to solve the issues with our old animation sets and systems, and we aim to turn our weakest point into our strongest point by the alpha. Essentially, we didn't want to commit too early and making many animations for mechanics that may not be in the final game. The purpose of our year-long alpha, starting this September, is to be quite iterative and to gather your feedback very regularly, either directly in-game or on our socials, like on Discord. You can get alpha access if you've backed tier 3 Vowman or above on Kickstarter. And last but not least, a huge thank you to everyone that has already backed our campaign, as this has meant a real lot to us. We've almost finalized our technical move to the UE5 skeleton, which we've teased in a couple of our Kickstarter updates. This will allow us to use post-process animation blueprints, which open up a large array of possibilities, such as more realistic movement of armor plates, as you can see here. This does imply re-rigging all existing armors, and we decided to take this opportunity to also improve upon our armors, as we had done in the past with the heavy Rennerite armor. The Mazovian heavy armor was done with this new workflow in mind, so it is now Sulma's turn with their heavy armor to receive this upgrade. Other armors in other tiers will also receive a similar treatment ahead of our alpha. We have also sought to standardize the material look of our weapons. Using the Mazovian axe, the Rennerite Grimblade and the Rosary Warsword as references, all the weapons will be upgraded to this new standard of quality and new ones will be created with it in mind. We haven't forgotten about faces either, and we are defining a better, higher quality workflow both for player faces and for named characters. This is one of those things that making the cinematic taught us a lot about, knowledge that we are now carrying into making better game assets. Our combat has seen several technical improvements, some of it under the hood. Many optimizations, particularly on server mode. This is a key point for us, as we have prepared our server specs and providers very carefully, as we of course intend to have up to 100 player matches, or alternatively supporting very high tick rates on smaller player counts. Our competitive matches will feature a tick rate of 128. The final tick rate of higher player count game modes remains to be seen, but our minimum target is 64. All of our maps are a work in progress, but recently 2 maps have seen the most improvement, namely Vorasta with new areas. Keep in mind though that all architectural assets and many props you see are placeholders, and Doriath with a new court. Ragdolls have been improved. Our previous system overrode an animation on death. Our newest one is something that you're more familiar with, using the impulse and direction of your weapon to create realistic ragdoll effects. In the future, we'll combine both of these for certain situations. We've also greatly improved hitboxes and hit registration, which should now make hits connect in an expected manner. Other global improvements have also occurred on player inputs, as we now support directional stabs or fully directional inputs, as well as buy-ins of course. We know our audience doesn't just come from one place, and you each have your own preferred input schemes and overall settings, so we wanted to give you as much granular control as possible in this area. A common question we've also gotten is if we support offline play. The answer is yes, and you can in fact create your own map list with, in the future, your own saved game mode settings and preferences. Now let's get into combat, but first let's talk about resources. We have decided to take a different approach than other slashers. Instead of having 2 main resources, you have 4. Health is quite important, as you can imagine, as you will die if it reaches 0. There are damage over time effects and also healing over time effects that impact your health. Stamina in FIEFDOM is spent on offensive actions. Fainting, morphing, shoves, jabs, all of that costs stamina. Reaching 0 stamina means that you lose most of your offensive toolkit, but in any case, you can still attack. Stamina regenerates over time and also regenerates on successfully landing hits on your opponents. Runestones. These are, in a sense, mana. You have 9 of them and they regenerate over time. At minimum, spells require 2 things in order to be cast. They must be off cooldown, and you must have enough runestones to cast them. Some spells might have other requirements, but these 2 are common to all of them. And lastly, posture. Posture is a defensive resource, drained when parrying and blocking. A successful chamber regenerates posture instead. We'll get into chambers in another devblog, as they are not currently implemented. Our goal with posture is to allow skilled players to have a tangible chance in scenarios where they are outnumbered, allowing them to leverage their stamina and posture at the right time in order to achieve victory. Now let's get into perhaps our most controversial mechanic, held parry or block. First, let's mention design. Our goal for every feature in FIEFDOM is to have all mechanics have a use case at all skill levels. Naturally, some players will gravitate towards some mechanics or others. Let's start with the disadvantages of blocking, which are several. You lose initiative when you trigger the blocking state. If you exit it, your timings are always slower than the slowest windup of the game. Nonetheless, you can still start an attack and feint it. You may catch a couple opponents off guard. You lose the ability to riposte, meaning that you will eventually have to parry or somehow dodge if you want to regain it. Your turn cap is increased, meaning that you can move your camera at a lesser speed and you are therefore more vulnerable to side hits. You cannot sprint while blocking, which you can while parrying. Movement is something that will be quite crucial in FIEFDOM, as outplaying someone or even a whole team can be attributed in great part to being in the right place at the right time, and blocking does limit your potential here. Your posture is constantly drained while you hold block, and the more you hold it, the higher the cost per second becomes. With all of those negatives, what's good about blocking? Firstly, they make missing a lot easier to deal with. If someone is intentionally missing you, which is a natural problem in slashers, you can at least trigger a block to avoid your defense being opened up through a miss. We have other mechanics that make the missing problem far less of an issue, which we'll get into in the future. For newer players, blocking does allow them to get the feedback they need to understand what is going on. Nothing is more frustrating than losing and not knowing why that is or what you could have done better. To a more skilled player, it means a second chance at reading feints, sacrificing posture rather than health. This thread on our Discord has given us some ideas, namely a proper way to regain initiative while blocking by adding a chamber out of block mechanic, which will allow you to chamber during the blocking stage with a reduced window to regain initiative. In addition to mechanics we consider standard to slashers, such as parry into parry, we've also worked on more experimental combat mechanics, such as a slight combo slowdown on miss, repose feints and repose morphs. With the way our combat system is set up, these are easy to tune across the whole game or even remove if they're not liked. As we are quite a small team, we cannot fill our own servers. As we aim to have game modes of 48, 64 and 100 players, we have decided to open up pre-alpha testing sometime ahead of alpha. Out of fairness, only Vowman backers or above are eligible. You will see a poll soon on our Discord to apply. Thank you very much for watching and see you next time.